Today marks 80 years since the Great Escape, and I'm not talking about the movie, I'm on about the actual Great Escape, where 76 Allied Air Forcemen managed to escape the highly secure prisoner of war camp Stalag Luft III. It was said to be unescapable. They had guards with guard dogs, they had searchlights, they had radios in the soil to be able to hear if anybody was doing any digging. The soil that it was on was made out of mostly clay and sand. It was meant to be unescapable. And yet 76 men succeeded. At 10:30 p.m. on the 24th of March 1944. Prior to that iconic day, the men had been working on escaping for over a year. They made 3 tunnels known as Tom, Dick and Harry. Tom was their first successful tunnel until it was eventually discovered. Dick they ended up using as a storage tunnel, and in the end they ended up focusing purely on Harry. Now, when the men were working on these tunnels, they used everything that was available to them. They used the wood from the bedding to be able to prop the tunnels up. They used the bedding itself, such as the blankets and the pillowcases, to make civilian clothes out of. They used shovels from the garden that they were provided with to dig out the tunnel. They made sure that the entrance to the tunnel would be underneath a fireplace, so that when the German guards ended up searching the places, they would never be able to find the entrance. This was all thought out and led by squadron leader Roger Bushell, also known as Big X. He organised this. He planned everything out. While they were working on the tunnels, the men came up with very creative ways to prevent themselves from being detected. They made pockets in their clothes so they could scatter soil onto the already known garden. When they did their digging, they would be down to their underwear at the most, so it wouldn't show up on their clothes. And they did everything they could to prevent the Germans from finding out. Finally, on the 24th of March 1944, this was the day that they decided that they were going to escape. The first person to come out of the tunnel was British pilot Johnny Bull. As he breathed in the crisp, cold air, he realised an error they had made. Unfortunately, the tunnel was about a foot away from the covering of the trees. With this error, it meant their plan to evacuate 200 men ended up being properly narrowed down to just 76. How they went about this was Johnny got out of the tunnel, tied a rope to a tree and had that go into the tunnel, so when the coast was clear he would just tug on it to let them know that they could come out. Because of the length of time it took to watch out until the coast was clear, it took too long, so it ended up being shortened down to just 76 who escaped rather than 200, which was the original plan. The tunnel wasn't discovered until 5 a.m. the next morning, which was the 25th of March. Upon being discovered, the prisoners who were trying to escape went back up the tunnel and back into their camp. The guards that had discovered it then went on a manhunt to find any escapees. Most of them lasted 2 weeks before being recaptured. 73 of them were recaptured. 50 of them were executed. This execution was ordered by Adolf Hitler himself. And this execution went again. When Adolf Hitler decided to have these men executed, he was violating the Geneva Conference, which was an agreement that every country had about how to treat soldiers and civilians. And he completely violated that. Out of the 76 men that did escape, only 3 of them managed to completely get to freedom. 2 of them were Norwegian gentlemen who managed to get to Sweden, and 1 of them was a Dutchman that managed to get to Gibraltar by using the trains and by going by foot. When Hitler organised the execution, it was to be a warning to other prisoners of war to not try this. So today is the day to remember these men who sacrificed everything to live. Because when you are captured, you have 2 choices. Stay put or try and escape. These men chose to fight for their freedom and ultimately died for their freedom. And although this year also marks the 80th anniversary of the Normandy landings, this was one of those little semi-victories that we also need to remember.